Princess Zarathil sat by her window and watched the busy spaceport below. Ships from all over the galaxy landed and took off every few minutes. She could see aliens of many different kinds walking around, talking and doing business together, but she could not hear their thoughts like other members of her people could. The Valerian people were special because they could speak with their minds. They had long, thin growths on their heads called bioneural tendrils that let them share thoughts and feelings with each other, but Zarathil's tendrils were twisted and broken. They had been that way since she was born. When she tried to use them, pain shot through her head like fire. Her father, Emperor Vexar, ruled the Valerian Empire. He was a powerful leader who could speak to anyone in his kingdom with just a thought, but his daughter was different. She was broken, at least that's what everyone said. The other nobles whispered about her when they thought she could not hear. They called her the defective princess and said she brought shame to the royal family. Today was special, though not in a good way. For Zarathil, the annual bonding ceremonies were starting. Young nobles from across the galaxy came to find partners and make strong connections between their families. These bonds were made through the mind, linking two people together in a way that would last forever. It was the most important thing in Valerian culture. Zarathil had watched these ceremonies for years, always from her tower room, always alone. No one ever asked her to join. No one ever looked at her as a possible partner. How could they? She could not make the mental bonds that made these ceremonies meaningful. She was like a person without a voice trying to sing. The princess wore a simple blue dress. Today, she did not bother with fancy clothes like the other young nobles wore. What was the point? She would not be meeting anyone. She would not be dancing. She would just watch from her window as others found love and happiness that she could never have. Down in the spaceport, she could see the ships arriving for the ceremonies. The Altarian ships looked like giant silver birds. The crystalline people came, vessels that sparkled like diamonds, and there, landing on platform 7, was a ship she had never seen before. It was smaller than the others and had a simple design. The writing on its side was in a language she did not know. Her door chimed softly. A servant entered and bowed low. Princess, your father requests your presence in the main hall. Zarathil lied. She knew what this was about. Every year, Emperor Vexar made her attend the opening ceremony. He said it was important for the royal family to show unity, but she knew the real reason. He still hoped that someone somewhere might want to bond with his daughter. It was a foolish hope, but fathers sometimes held on to foolish hopes. She walked through the crystal corridors of the palace. Other nobles moved past her without making eye contact. Some whispered behind their hands, others simply pretended she did not exist. This was normal for Zarathil. She had learned to live with being invisible. The main hall was full of aliens from dozens of different worlds. The ceiling was so high that clouds formed near the top. Floating platforms carried important guests around the room. The air buzzed with mental conversations that Zarathil could not hear. She felt like she was watching a silent movie while everyone else heard the sound. Emperor Vexator stood on the royal platform, his golden tendrils glowing as he spoke to the crowd with his mind. Zarathil took her place beside him, keeping her own broken tendrils hidden under a decorative hood. She had learned to do this years ago, too. Avoid the stares and pointing, as her father gave his welcoming speech. Zarathul let her eyes wander over the crowd. She could see the young Alarians, with their smooth blue skin and silver eyes. The crystalline people looked like living gemstones, their bodies catching and reflecting light. There were dozens of other species, all here to find partners and make connections. Then she saw something that made her stop and look closer. Near the back of the hall stood a group she had never seen before. They looked almost like Valyrians, but their skin was darker and they had no tendrils at all. They were completely bald where bioneural growth should be. How strange, she thought. How did they communicate without tendrils? One of these strange aliens was looking around the room with bright, curious eyes. He was tall and had broad shoulders. His face was kind, not cold and distant like most of the other guests. As Zarathul watched him, something unexpected happened. He looked up at the royal platform and their eyes met. Most people looked away quickly when they saw her. They did not want to make contact with the broken princess, but this alien did not look away. Instead, he smiled. It was a warm, friendly smile that reached his eyes. For a moment, Zarathul forgot to breathe. The alien said something to one of his companions, who looked up at her as well. Then they both turned to a female of their species, who seemed to be their leader. Zarathul watched as they had what appeared to be a discussion, though she could not hear their thoughts or their words from this distance. Her father finished his speech and the crowd began to move around and mingle. The princess expected to return to her room now, as she always did, but Emperor Vexar surprised her. Stay close tonight, my daughter, he said quietly. I have a feeling this ceremony will be different from the others. Zarathul did not understand what he meant, but she obeyed. She watched as groups formed and conversations began. She saw young nobles meeting for the first time, their tendrils glowing as they shared thoughts and feelings. It was beautiful in a way that made her heart ache. Then something happened that had never happened before. The strange alien who had smiled at her was walking toward the royal platform. His companions followed behind him, including the female who appeared to be their leader. Palace guards moved to stop them, but Emperor Vexar raised his hand. Let them approach, he said, his mental voice carrying to the guards. Aliens climbed the steps to the royal platform. Up close, Zarathul could see that they were even more unusual than she had first thought. Their skin was not just darker, it was completely different. They had hair on their heads instead of tendrils, and their eyes were small and round instead of large and oval-shaped. The female alien stepped forward and spoke in the common galactic language. Your Majesty, I am Ambassador Lisa Carter of Earth. These are my companions, Jake Morrison and Dr. Ben Hughes. We come representing the human race. Humans. Zarathul had heard of them, but had never seen any before. They were one of the newest species to join the Galactic Council. Most people said they were primitive and had no telepathic abilities at all. Looking at them now, she could see why. They had no bioneural equipment of any kind. Emperor Vexar inclined his head politely. Welcome to Valyria Prime, Ambassador Carter. We are honored by your presence at our ceremonies. But the human called Jake Morrison was not looking at the Emperor. He was looking directly at Zarathul, and he was still smiling, that warm, genuine smile that made something flutter in her Chest, Your Majesty, Jake said, stepping forward slightly. I hope I am not being too bold, but I would like to request something unusual. The Emperor's tendrils flickered with curiosity. And GT, speak freely. And GT, human. Jake's eyes never left Zarathal's face as he said the words that would change everything. I would like to request a formal audience with Princess Zarathal. The great hall fell silent. Even the mental conversation seemed to stop. No one had ever requested an audience with the broken princess. No one had ever wanted to meet her formally. Zaral felt her heart pounding so hard she was sure everyone could hear it. Emperor Vexar looked surprised but not displeased. After a long moment, he spoke both aloud and with his mind so everyone could hear. Request granted. Tomorrow at sunset you may meet with my daughter. The Garden of Reflection. As the crowd began to whisper and buzz with excitement, Zarathal continued to stare at the human who had just done the impossible. He had asked to meet her, not out of duty or politeness, but because he actually wanted to. For the first time in her life, Princess Zarathal felt something she had almost forgotten existed: hope. The next day passed very slowly for Princess Zarathal. She could not stop thinking about the human who had asked to meet her. Jake Morrison. Even name sounded strange and wonderful. She had said it to herself many times throughout the day, trying to understand why someone would want to talk to her. Her servants helped her dress for the meeting. They chose a simple green dress that matched her eyes. One servant suggested hiding her broken tendrils under a decorative wrap, as she always did in public, but today's Zarathal decided to leave them uncovered. If this human wanted to meet her, he should see exactly what she was. The Garden of Reflection was the most beautiful place in the palace. Crystal trees grew alongside real ones, and streams of clear water flowed between beds of glowing flowers. The setting sun painted everything in soft gold and pink colors. Zarathal often came here when she felt sad or lonely. It was one of the few places where she felt peace. She arrived early and sat on a stone bench near the largest fountain. The water made gentle sounds as it flowed, and she tried to calm her nervous heart. What would they talk about? What if he changed his mind when he saw her broken tendrils up close? What if this was all some kind of cruel joke? But then Jake Morrison appeared at the garden entrance, and all her fears seemed less important. He walked toward her with that same kind smile. She remembered he was not wearing fancy clothes like the other visiting nobles. Instead, he had on simple dark pants and a white shirt. Somehow this made her feel more comfortable. Princess Zarathal, he said, stopping a respectful distance away and giving a small bow. Thank you for agreeing to meet with me. She stood up and tried to remember the proper words for greeting foreign visitors. You honor me with your presence. Ambassador Morrison. Just Jake, please. He said, I am not really an ambassador. I help Ambassador Carter understand different cultures, but I am not very important. This surprised her. Most visitors to the palace talked about their titles and accomplishments right away. They wanted everyone to know how important they were, but this human seemed different. May I sit with you? Jake asked, gesturing to the bench. Zarathal nodded and sat back down. When Jake sat beside her, she noticed that he did not try to activate any bioneural connections. Of course, she realized humans could not do that. They had no tendrils at all. This garden is beautiful, Jake said, looking around at the crystal trees and glowing flowers. Do you come here often? Yes, Zarathel replied. It is quiet here. Peaceful, Jake nodded as if he understood exactly what she meant. They sat in comfortable silence for a moment, listening to the water and watching the colors of sunset reflect off the crystal branches. Princess, Jake said finally, I hope you do not mind me asking, but why did you look so surprised when I requested this meeting? Zarathel felt her cheeks grow warm. How could she explain? Without sounding pathetic, no one has ever asked to meet with me before, she said quietly, not for bonding purposes. Why not? Jake asked, and he sounded genuinely curious, not like he was making fun of her. Zarathel touched her broken tendrils without thinking. Because I am defective, I cannot form the mental bonds that are important to my people. I cannot share thoughts or feelings the way others can. When I try, it causes me great pain. She expected Jake to look uncomfortable or make excuses to leave. That is what most people did when they learned about her condition, but instead he leaned forward with interest. Tell me about these bonds, he said. How do they work for your people? So Zarathel explained. She told him about how Valyrians could share their thoughts and emotions directly through their bioneural tendrils. She described how bonded couples could feel each other's happiness and sadness, how they could communicate without words, how they became two parts of one mind. It sounds wonderful, Jake said when she finished, but also a little overwhelming. Do you ever get to be alone with your own thoughts? This was not a question anyone had ever asked her before. I do not know, she admitted. I have always been alone with my thoughts, but other Valyrians say the connection is the most beautiful thing in existence. They say it is what makes life worth living. Jake was quiet for a long moment, thinking. Princess, may I tell you about how humans form bonds? Zarathel nodded eagerly. She was very curious about these strange people with no telepathic abilities. Humans bond through what we call love, Jake began. We get to know each other by talking, by spending time together, by sharing experiences. We learn about each other's hopes and dreams and fears. We support each other through difficult times and celebrate together during happy times. But how do you truly know what the other person is thinking? Zarl asked. How can you be sure they care about you if you cannot feel their emotions directly? Jake smiled. We show our care through actions. We say kind words. We help each other. We make sacrifices for the people we love. And yes, sometimes we guess wrong about what someone is thinking or feeling, but that is part of learning to understand each other. It sounds very uncertain, Zarathel said. It is, Jake agreed, but it is also exciting. Every day you can discover something new about the person you love. There is always more to learn, always ways to grow closer together. Zarathel thought about this. It sounded very different from Valyrian bonding, where everything was shared instantly and completely. Do humans ever form bonds with people from other species? Sometimes, Jake said. It is not common because we are still new to knowing other species, but I think it is possible when two people truly care about each other and want to understand each other. The princess felt something stirring in her chest, a feeling she could not quite name. But what about the differences? Humans and Valyrians are not the same. No, we are not. Jake said, but maybe that could be good. Maybe we could learn from each other. Maybe we could create a new kind of bond, one that does not depend on telepathy. Zarathul stared at him. You think that is possible? I think many things are possible if people are willing to try, Jake said. He turned to face her more directly. Princess, I know this might sound strange, and I know we have just met, but I would like to ask you something. Her heart began to beat faster. What is it? Jake took a deep breath. Your people bond through the mind, sharing thoughts and feelings. Instantly, my people bond through the heart, learning about each other slowly. Over time, we do not need to share thoughts to share souls. Zarathul felt like the world had stopped moving. She could not breathe properly. Will you bond with me? Jake asked softly. Not in your people's way, because I know that causes you pain, but in the human way. Will you let me get to know your heart? Will you try to understand mine? No one had ever asked her anything like this before. No one had ever seen past her broken tendrils to wonder about her heart. No one had ever thought she might have something valuable to offer. I do not understand, she whispered. Why would you want to bond with me? I am defective. I am broken. I cannot give you what other partners could give you. Jake reached out slowly and gently touched her hand. His skin was warm and soft. Princess, you are not broken. You are different, and different can be wonderful. Tears began to form in Zarathul's eyes. But we are from different species. We do not even know if such a bond could work. We will not know unless we try, Jake said. I am not asking you to decide right now. I am asking if you would be willing to spend time with me, to talk with me, to see if we could care about each other. If you decide you do not want to continue, you can stop at any time. Zarathul looked into his kind eyes and saw something she had never seen before. When someone looked at her, she saw hope. She saw possibility. She saw someone who believed she was worth knowing. She started, then stopped. Could she really do this? Could she trust this strange human who offered her something no one else ever had? Take your time, Jake said gently. This is a big decision. But suddenly Zarathul knew her answer. For the first time in her life, someone was offering her a chance at the kind of connection she had always dreamed of. It might not work. It might be impossible. But what if it was not? Yes, she said so quietly that Jake had to lean closer to hear her. Yes, I will try to bond with you. Jake's smile was brighter than all the glowing flowers in the garden. Really, really, Zarathul said, and for the first time in years she smiled back as they sat together in the beautiful garden, watching the stars appear in the darkening sky. Neither of them knew that this simple conversation had just started something that would change the entire galaxy. They only knew that two lonely people had found each other across the vast space between different worlds, and for now that was enough. The news that Princess Zarathul was attempting to bond with a human spread through the palace like wildfire. Servants whispered about it in the corridors. Nobles discussed it during their meals. Even Emperor Vexar seemed surprised by how quickly word had traveled. Some people were curious. Others were shocked. A few were angry. But everyone was watching to see what would happen when a broken Valyrian princess tried to connect with an alien who had no telepathic abilities at all. Jake came to visit Zarathul every day. At first, they met in the Garden of Reflection where they had first talked. Later, when they felt more comfortable with each other, Zarathil showed him other parts of the palace. They walked through the crystal halls, visited the royal library, and sat by the great windows that looked out over the city. During these visits, Jake taught Zarathil about human emotions and relationships. He explained how humans said, "I love you," with words instead of sharing the feeling directly through their minds. He showed her how humans held hands to feel close to each other and how they hugged when they were happy or sad. Touch is very important to humans, Jake explained one afternoon as they sat in the library. We cannot share thoughts, so we share physical contact instead. A gentle touch can say many things that words cannot. Zarathil was fascinated by this idea. In Valyrian culture, physical touch was not very important because mental connection was so much stronger, but when Jake gently took her hand in his, she felt something warm and comforting that had nothing to do with telepathy. "What does this mean?" she asked, looking down at their joined hands. "It means I care about you," Jake said simply. "It means you are not alone." Zarathil discovered that her broken tendrils, which caused her so much pain when she tried to use them for telepathy, were actually very sensitive to gentle touch. When Jake carefully brushed his fingers along them, instead of pain, she felt a pleasant, tingling sensation that was completely new to her. "Does that hurt?" Jake asked the first time he touched her tendrils. "No," Zarathil said in wonder. "It feels nice. No one has ever touched them gently before. The doctors who examined me when I was young were not careful, and it always hurt. They are part of you," Jake said. "Even if they do not work the way other people's do, they are still beautiful." No one had ever called any part of Zarathil beautiful before. As the days passed, Zarathil began to change in ways that surprised everyone who knew her. She had always been quiet and sad, keeping to herself in her tower room. But now she laughed often. She asked questions about Jake's world and his people. She told him stories about her childhood and her dreams. Jake also changed. When he first came to Valyria Prime, he had been curious about the planet and its people, but he had felt like an outsider. Now he spent every free moment with Zarathil, learning not just about Valyrian culture, but about her as a person. He discovered that she was incredibly intelligent and had many ideas about how different species could work together better. "You know," Zarathil said one evening as they watched the sunset from her tower window, "I have always thought it was unfair that species without telepathy cannot participate fully in galactic council meetings. The Altarians and other telepathic species can communicate instantly during discussions, but non-telepathic species have to use translators and miss important parts of conversations." Jake looked at her with admiration. "That is a very good point. Have you ever suggested solutions?" Zarathil shook her head. "Who would listen to me? I am the broken princess who cannot even communicate properly with her own people." "I would listen," Jake said firmly. "Your ideas are valuable. Just because you think differently does not mean you think poorly." This gave Zarathil an idea. Over the next few days, she began working on a new system of communication that did not rely on telepathy. She used written symbols, hand gestures, and spoken words to create a way for all species to communicate equally, regardless of their mental abilities. Jake helped her develop these ideas. His knowledge of human communication methods combined with her understanding of galactic politics created something neither of them could have achieved alone, but not everyone was happy about their growing relationship. Ambassador Lisa Carter pulled Jake aside one afternoon after he returned from visiting Zarathal. "Jake, I need to talk to you," she said. "Seriously, people are starting to ask questions about your relationship with the princess." "What kind of questions?" Jake asked. "Some people think you are making a mistake that could hurt human relations with the Valerian Empire." Lisa explained. "They say you are playing with the emotions of a disabled alien for political gain." Jake felt anger rise in his chest. "That is not true at all. I care about Zarathal very much." "I believe you," Lisa said, "but others do not understand. They think this bonding attempt is just a curiosity that will end badly for everyone." Around the same time, Zarathal was facing similar pressure. Her uncle, General Corfs, came to visit her in her tower room. He said in his stern voice, "this foolishness with the human must stop." "It is not foolishness, Uncle," Zarathal replied. "Jake cares about me and I care about him. He is using you," General Corfs said firmly. "Humans are new to galactic politics. He is trying to gain influence through you." "You are wrong," Zarathal said, but her uncle's words planted seeds of doubt in her mind. What if Jake was only being kind to her because she was a princess? What if he did not really care about her at all? That evening when Jake came for his usual visit, Zarathal was quiet and distant. She did not hold his hand like she usually did, and she avoided looking directly at him. "Is something wrong?" Jake asked gently. "People are saying things," Zarathal said slowly. "They say you are only being kind to me because I am a princess. They say this bonding attempt is not real." Jake was quiet for a long moment, then he moved closer to her on the bench where they were sitting. "Zarathal, look at me." She raised her eyes to meet his. "I do not care that you are a princess," Jake said. "I care that you are intelligent and kind and brave. I care that you make me laugh and that you think about ways to help others. I care that when you smile, it makes me feel like the luckiest person in the galaxy." Tears formed in Zarathal's eyes. "But what if we are too different? What if this bonding cannot work? Then we will have tried," Jake said, "and we will have learned about each other and grown as people. That is never a waste, even if it does not lead to a permanent bond." Zarathal felt the doubts in her heart beginning to fade. "You really mean that?" "I really mean that," Jake said. He reached out and gently touched her face, wiping away a tear with his thumb. "I want to be with you, Zarathal. Not because you are a princess, not because it might help my people politically, but because you are you." That night Zarathal made a decision. She asked her father for a private audience. "Father," she said when they met in his study, "I want to make my bonding with Jake Morrison official." Emperor Vexar looked at his daughter carefully. She looked happier and more confident than he had ever seen her. "Are you certain this is what you want?" "I am certain," Zarathal said. "I know it is unusual. I know many people disapprove. But Jake has shown me that I can be loved and valued just as I am. I want to spend my life learning to love him in return." Emperor Vexar was quiet for a long time. Finally he spoke. "You have always been my greatest source of both pride and worry, my daughter. Pride, because you are strong and intelligent and kind. Worry, because I feared you would never find happiness in a world That did not understand you, and now, Zarathil asked, now I see that happiness can come from the most unexpected places, her father said with a smile. If you wish to bond with this human, you have my blessing. Tomorrow I will announce that the Valyrian Empire recognizes your courtship as official. Zarathil felt joy flood through her heart. Thank you, father. As she walked back to her room that night, Zarathil thought about how much her life had changed since Jake Morrison had first asked to meet with her. She was no longer the sad, lonely princess who hid in her tower. She was someone who was loved and valued. She was someone who had ideas and dreams that others wanted to hear, and tomorrow the whole galaxy would know that she was attempting something that had never been tried before, a bond between species that went beyond telepathy, beyond tradition, beyond what anyone thought was possible. She could hardly wait to tell Jake the good news. Announcement that Emperor Vexeter would officially recognize his daughters, bonding with a human-created chaos across the galaxy. Within hours of the news spreading, angry messages poured in from Valyrian nobles, Galactic Council members, and even some human political leaders. General Koresh was furious. He called an emergency meeting with other high-ranking Valyrian military officers in his private chambers. The room was filled with the angry glow of bioneural tendrils as the officers shared their outrage through telepathic communication. This is a disgrace to our species, General Koresh declared, both aloud and through his mind. A royal princess bonding with an alien who has no telepathic abilities. It goes against everything we believe in. The bloodline will be contaminated, added Commander Velter, her tendrils flickering with distress. Any children from this union will be even more defective than the princess already is. We must stop this bonding ceremony, said Captain Morith. The honor of the Valyrian Empire depends on it. General Koresh nodded grimly. I have been in contact with certain human political groups who share our concerns. They believe this Jake Morrison is making a terrible mistake that will damage relations between our species. Meanwhile on Earth, Senator Paul Richmond was holding his own emergency meeting. The conference room was filled with human politicians and military advisors, all looking worried and angry. This is exactly the kind of reckless behavior we were afraid of when we sent diplomats to these alien worlds, Senator Richmond said, pacing back and forth. Now we have some cultural attaché making romantic connections with alien royalty without any authorization from Earth government. The implications could be serious, agreed General Betty Foster. If this bonding fails or causes offense, it could damage our standing with the entire Galactic Council. We need to recall Morrison immediately, said Congressman Alex Turner, before he causes any more damage. Back on Valeria Prime, Jake and Zarathil were unaware of the political storms brewing around them. They were in the garden of reflection, working together on Zarathil's communication system that would help non-telepathic species participate better in galactic politics. If we use these symbols for basic concepts and combine them with simple hand gestures, any species should be able to understand the meaning, Zarathil explained, showing Jake her drawings. This is brilliant, Jake said, studying her work. You have found a way to make communication equal for everyone, regardless of their natural abilities. Their peaceful work was interrupted when Ambassador Lisa Carter arrived with a serious expression on her face. Jake, I need to speak with you privately, she said. Zarathul immediately sensed tension. Is something wrong? I will explain everything later, Jake promised her, then followed Lisa to a private area of the garden. Jake, we have a big problem, Lisa said once they were alone. Earth government is demanding that you stop this bonding process immediately. They think you are acting without proper authority and putting human interests at risk. This has nothing to do with politics, Jake said firmly. I care about Zarathul as a person. I know that, and I support you, Lisa said. But Senator Richmond is threatening to end your diplomatic career if you do not return to Earth immediately. He says you are embarrassing the human race. At the same time, Emperor Vexar was meeting with his brother General Corfish in the throne room. The conversation was tense, with both brothers' tendrils glowing as they engaged in rapid telepathic argument. Brother, you must reconsider this foolish announcement, General Koresh said. The other noble families are threatening to withdraw their support for your rule if you allow this bonding to proceed. My daughter's happiness is more important than political support, Emperor Vexar replied. Your daughter is defective, General Koresh said harshly. She cannot form proper bonds with our own people. How can she possibly bond with an alien? She is not defective, the Emperor said angrily. She is different, and this human has shown her more kindness and respect than any of our people ever have. The bloodline will be corrupted, General Koresh insisted. Our enemies will say that the royal family has become weak and desperate. Over the next few days, the pressure on both Jake and Zarathul increased dramatically. Protesters gathered outside the palace carrying signs that called the bonding unnatural and dangerous. Some Valyrian nobles refused to attend court functions if the princess was present. Human News broadcast questioned Jake's mental stability and suggested he was being manipulated by alien influence. The situation became dangerous when extremist groups from both species began working together. General Koresh secretly met with Senator Richmond's representatives to plan ways to stop the bonding ceremony. If we cannot convince them to stop through political pressure, we may need to take more direct action, General Koresh said during one of these secret meetings. What kind of direct action? Asked the human representative, a man named Carl Brooks, who worked for Senator Richmond. The kind that ensures this disgraceful bonding never takes place, General Koresh replied ominously. Jake and Zarathul began receiving threatening messages. Someone left a note in Zarathul's room that said, broken princesses should not contaminate pure bloodlines. Jake found a message on his communication device that read, go home, human, before something bad happens to you. The threats only made them more determined to prove that their bond was real and meaningful. They spent even more time together working on Zarathul's communication projects and learning about each other's cultures. I have been thinking, Zarathul said one evening as they sat in her tower room. What if we could show everyone that bonds between different species can make both people stronger? What if our bonding could help create better understanding across the galaxy? How do you mean? Jake asked. Your people and mine both have strengths, Zarathul explained. Valyrians are good at mental communication and sharing emotions. Humans are good at verbal communication and individual thinking. Together we could develop new ways for all species to work together. Jake smiled. You want our bond to be about more than just personal love. Yes, Zarathel said, I want it to be about hope, hope that differences can be strengths instead of weaknesses, hope that understanding is possible even when people are not the same, but their enemies were not interested in hope or understanding. General Koresh and his allies began making plans to disrupt the bonding ceremony that Emperor Vexar had scheduled for the following week. We will make it look like the human is dangerous, General Koresh explained to his conspirators. We will claim he is trying to use the princess to gain control over the Valyrian Empire. Then we will have justification to arrest him and send him back to Earth. What about the princess? Asked Commander. She will be declared mentally unstable due to her defects, General Koresh said coldly. She will be confined to her tower for her own protection, and this foolishness will end. Meanwhile, Senator Richmond was making his own plans from Earth. We will send a military ship to Valyria Prime, he told his advisors. We will tell them it is for Morrison's protection, but really we will use it to extract him by force if necessary. Neither Jake nor Zarthel knew about these plots against them. They were too busy preparing for their bonding ceremony and working on their communication projects. Zarathel had developed a complete system that could allow all species to participate equally in galactic discussions, and Jake was helping her prepare a presentation for the Galactic Council. This could change everything, Jake said as he reviewed her work. If the Council accepts your communication system, it could give voice to dozens of species that have been excluded from important decisions. That would make all of this worthwhile, Zarathel said. Even if some people never accept our bonding, at least we could help others who feel left out in different. But as their bonding ceremony approached, their enemies were preparing to strike. The next few days would test whether love and understanding could overcome hatred and fear. The stage was set for a confrontation that would determine not just the fate of Jake and Zara's relationship, but the future of cooperation between different species across the galaxy. The day of the bonding ceremony arrived with storm clouds gathering over Valyria Prime. It seemed like even the weather knew that something important and dangerous was about to happen. The ancient temple of Unity had been decorated with flowers from dozens of different worlds. Representatives from across the galaxy had come to witness this unprecedented bonding between a Valyrian princess and a human diplomat. Some came out of curiosity, others out of support, and a few out of a desire to see the ceremony fail. Princess Zara stood in her private chamber preparing for the most important day of her life. Her servants had dressed her in a beautiful white gown that sparkled like starlight. For the first time in years, she wore her broken tendrils uncovered and decorated with small crystal ornaments that caught the light. You look beautiful, my daughter, Emperor Vexar said as he entered her chamber. Are you ready for this? I am ready, Father, Zarathel replied, though her hands were shaking slightly. I know there are people who want to stop this ceremony, but I believe Jake and I can show them that love is stronger than fear. Meanwhile, Jake was in his own chamber, putting on the formal clothes that Ambassador Lisa Carter had brought from Earth. He was nervous but determined. he knew that what he and Zarathil were doing would change both of their lives forever. Jake, Lisa said as she helped him adjust his jacket, I want you to know that I am proud of you. What you are doing takes real courage. Thank you. Jake said, that means a lot to me. There are rumors that some people might try to disrupt the ceremony, Lisa warned. Security is tight, but be careful. As the ceremony began, guests filled the Temple of Unity. Altarians sat in their section, their silver tendrils glowing softly. The crystalline people sparkled like living jewels in the temple's light. Dozens of other species watched as Jake and Zarathil prepared to make history, but General Koresh and his allies were ready to act. They had positioned armed soldiers around the temple, claiming it was for security. In reality, they were preparing to arrest Jake on charges of manipulating a mentally disabled alien for political gain. The ceremony began with traditional Valyrian rituals. Emperor Vexar spoke about the importance of bonds between different beings and the strength that comes from unity. Then it was time for the actual bonding to begin, but just as Jake and Zarathil stepped forward to begin their vows, General Koresh and his soldiers burst into the temple. Stop this ceremony, General Koresh shouted. I arrest this human for crimes against the Valyrian Empire. The crowd gasped, and several guests jumped to their feet. Emperor Vexar's tendrils flared with anger as he faced his brother. By what authority do you interrupt this sacred ceremony? The emperor demanded. By the authority of the High Council of Nobles, who have declared this bonding illegal and dangerous, General Koresh replied. This human is manipulating your defective daughter to gain influence over our empire. Jake stepped protectively in front of Zarathil. That is not true. I love Zarathil for who she is, not for any political advantage. Lies, General Koresh said. You humans are known for your deception. Guards, arrest him. But as the guards moved toward Jake, something unexpected happened. Other voices rang out through the temple. No, leave them alone. To everyone's amazement, dozens of Valyrians stepped forward to block the guards, but these were not normal Valyrians. Like Zarathil, they had broken or malformed tendrils. They were the defective ones who had been hidden away in shame by their families for years. We will not let you destroy the first hope we have ever had, called out a young Valyrian woman with twisted tendrils. Similar to Zarathil's, Princess Zarathil has shown us that we can be loved and valued just as we are. She has given us courage to come out of hiding, added an older Valyrian man whose tendrils had never developed properly. If she can find happiness with someone who accepts her differences, maybe we can too. General Koresh was shocked. He had not expected resistance from what he considered the weakest members of Valyrian society. These defective beings have no right to interfere in matters of state, he declared. But Zarathil stepped forward, her voice clear and strong. Uncle, you call us defective, but you are wrong. We are different, and our differences make us valuable. She gestured to Jake, who moved to stand beside her. Jake has helped me develop new communication system that will allow all species to participate equally in galactic politics, regardless of their telepathic abilities. My broken tendrils, which you see as a weakness, allow me to understand the problems that non-telepathic species face. Show them, Jake said quietly. Zarathil nodded and began demonstrating her Communication system using hand, gestures, spoken words, and visual symbols. She addressed the crowd in a way that every species present could understand perfectly. For too long, telepathic species have dominated galactic politics while others have been left out, she said. Her words translated into multiple languages, while her gestures made her meaning clear to everyone. But what if we could change that? What if we could create a galaxy where everyone has an equal voice? The crowd began to murmur with interest. Representatives from non-telepathic species looked amazed as they realized they were understanding everything perfectly without any special equipment. Even some of the Valerian nobles looked impressed despite themselves. This was communication on a level they had never seen before. Emperor Vexeter stepped forward. My daughter speaks wisdom. Perhaps it is time for our galaxy to try new ways of understanding each other. General Koresh realized that his plan was failing. In desperation, he signaled to his soldiers to arrest Jake by force. But as they moved forward, something even more surprising happened. Ambassador Lisa Carter and her security team burst into the temple, followed by representatives from a dozen different non-telepathic species who had been watching the ceremony through communication feeds. The Galactic Council has voted, Lisa announced loudly. Princess Zarathel's communication system has been officially adopted as an alternative diplomatic protocol. Any attempt to interfere with this bonding ceremony is now considered an attack on galactic unity. Non-telepathic species representatives stepped forward to surround Jake and Zarathel protectively. For the first time in galactic history, species that had been marginalized and ignored were standing together as a united force. General Koresh looked around at the crowd that was no longer supporting him. Even some of his own soldiers were lowering their weapons, unwilling to attack a ceremony that had suddenly become a symbol of hope for so many people. This is not over, General Koresh said angrily, but he and his remaining supporters retreated from the temple with the immediate danger past. Emperor Vexar smiled at his daughter. I believe we have a bonding ceremony to complete. Jake and Zarathel looked at each other and laughed with relief and joy. They had faced opposition from across the galaxy and emerged stronger together. The ceremony continued with a new kind of bonding ritual that combined Valerian and human traditions. Instead of telepathic fusion, Jake and Zara spoke vows that expressed their commitment to understanding each other across all differences. They exchanged gifts that represented their two cultures, and when they joined hands, every person in the temple could see the genuine love and respect they shared. I promise to learn your language of the heart, Zarathel said to Jake, and to teach you the wisdom of seeing differences as strength. I promise to stand with you against anyone who says you are broken, Jake said to Zarathel, and to help you change the galaxy into a place where everyone belongs. When Emperor Vexar officially declared them bonded, the crowd erupted in cheers that could be heard across the city. For the first time in galactic history, across species bonding had been completed, not despite the differences between the partners, but because of them. 6 months later, Jake and Zarathel were working together as special ambassadors for interspecies cooperation. Zarathel's communication system had been implemented in Galactic Council Meetings giving voice to dozens of species that had previously been excluded from important decisions. Their love story had inspired other cross-species relationships throughout the galaxy. More importantly, it had started a movement to value differences instead of hiding them. Princess Zarathil, who had once been called the unwanted broken princess, had become one of the most respected diplomats in the galaxy. Jake Morrison, the simple human who had asked an impossible question, had helped change the very definition of what it meant to be connected across the stars. They had proved that the greatest bonds often form between the most unlikely people, and that love truly can overcome any difference when it is built on understanding, respect, and the courage to see beauty in what others call broken. Their story became a legend told throughout the galaxy, the tale of a human who asked a simple question and an alien princess who dared to answer yes, changing the universe forever.